Good morning or good afternoon, depends on when you're listening to the podcast.
Jesus Christ.
Welcome back to Collectively Unhinged with your host, Melissa, and your co-host.
Hi, this is Courtney.
Courtney doesn't like my intros. She's like, do you want to start? And then I start and she criticizes me. Anyway, we're going to talk about some hot takes today. So, it might be a little bit unhinged, but we're talking about unpopular therapy opinions. I thought we were just talking about unpopular opinions in general. I was about to start going off, but yeah, let's stick to therapy. It's a therapy podcast. All right. So if you are maybe easily offended by unpopular opinions, maybe it's a good idea if you don't listen to this one. But if you're here for a good time and if you like a good argument, please stay tuned.
Thank you for that wonderful intro, Melissa. I truly appreciated it.
You're welcome. It's been great.
Okay, so this is kind of like where the idea comes from. So you know that a lot of my inspiration for the podcast episodes come from two very specific places, from real life, meaning either personal life or with, talking with my clients, or from things that I'm seeing a lot on social media. So this actually in part comes from different pockets that have come up on my feed on social media of things that people have been talking about. So over time, I've been gathering some of these as things for us to discuss. So kind of one of the first things that have come up is, the idea of small talk in therapy. So this was a therapist that had put out this post saying that she doesn't do small talk with her clients, that she feels like it is a disservice to their clients to try to engage them and like, hey, how was your day? How was your week? How are you doing? Sort of thing, catching up in that sort of sense, and that it wastes about 10 minutes or 15 minutes of a client's time that they're paying for, and that she feels like it's a disservice to clients to be able to do it. And there was a lot of people that commented on her post that actually agreed with that. So I wanted to talk about that because actually for me, I feel like the complete opposite. I engage in small talk all the time with my clients. Every single client, essentially, I'm engaging in small talk with them because I feel like it's actually really important in a lot of different ways. But Melissa, I want to get your take on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I engage in small talk too. I'm actually kind of surprised to hear that take. Like, it's definitely not useless. And honestly, a lot of clients will engage or start small talk themselves. Like I feel like they find it to be just very beneficial. Um, I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times people will say like that it's important to like be able to relate to your therapist. And obviously the purpose of small talk isn't for like me to start talking about myself. That's not what it is. But we're having small talk, at least for me, about like this person's life, right? Because it doesn't always
Mm-hmm.
have to be like a doom and gloom session, which I tell people about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which I tell people about too. Like sometimes they're like, "Oh, this is a happy session." I'm like, sometimes it's okay to talk about your progress and see how you're doing and like give you credit. Like we don't have to come in here and like boohoo cry every single session. Like you're not gonna want to have therapy anymore. That's why I think it's like I don't know if you've seen this, but it's like so popular for people to be like, oh, how was therapy? And for them to be like, great, I feel substantially worse now. And it's like, well, yeah, sometimes you're talking about really difficult topics and it's very draining and it's really hard to work through and you're left feeling just exhausted at the end of it. Um, and that's normal, but what isn't normal is expecting it to be like a horrifying session each and every single time. So yeah, I think it's like super important. I don't know what your take is on it, Courtney, but it sounds like you kind of agree where like it doesn't always have to be the worst conversation of someone's life to get something good out of therapy.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, we are Florida-based therapists. We live in Florida. So one of kind of the biggest things here that I feel like is super popular a lot is Disney. So Disney Walt Disney World actually surprisingly comes up quite a bit in sessions at times. And usually it's just talking about like them having fun, looking forward to either going on the trip or coming back from the trip and either being exhausted but still having a good time. And like all of that is usually like part of the small talk, like, oh my God, how was your trip to Disney? Or are you looking forward to it? Things like that. And I always find that it helps to really kind of like not only build a connection and a relationship with your client, but in a lot of ways, it can also help build safety too, especially if I would say even more so for the people that are just at the very beginning of therapy too. Sometimes the idea of like just going straight in is not helpful. I mean, yes, we have to do like intakes at the beginning where you're getting all of this information, but a lot of people are not going to easily open up to somebody and be able to talk about these like really difficult things. So I actually find that going through this route of at times having small talk is not only beneficial for them and again helping them build safety, but I also feel like the stuff that you're getting from them can also be very helpful in the data that you have in your mind about what is going on with this person. Like you notice things about maybe that their anxiety tendencies, their avoidance tendencies, their social conditioning, so to speak. So I actually feel like you can get a lot of useful information through small talk at times that maybe they wouldn't necessarily reveal if they feel like they're having to reveal kind of like dark secrets or something like that. I don't know. So that was kind of like my first unpopular opinion that I wanted to be able to like get out there because I actually, again, do feel like it's pretty beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, I even like, especially like the first few sessions, I'll ask if it's okay to talk about certain things because sometimes people feel forced, right? They're like, well, can I say no? I'm like, yeah, dude, what do you mean? Like, I'm out here like holding you down, telling you you have to tell me all these things. Like, it just takes time. So it is absolutely okay for it to take a second. No one should be forcing you into having very deep conversations. Also, the other part of it is, if you are an experienced therapist, you know that not everybody is super equipped to handle those deep conversations right from the beginning. You have to start wherever that person is at. So if you're taking in a client that you know might get re-traumatized by talking about their trauma, well, then you shouldn't be talking about their trauma. So that involves some small talk. That involves what can be seen as like lighter conversations because you're talking about like how to help them cope with processing their trauma. You're not even getting into it. So whatever, we can go down a ton of different rabbit holes there. But what's the next unpopular opinion, Courtney?
So this one actually comes from some of my own personal couples sessions that I've had with clients. I had a client tell me that he was concerned that couples therapy wasn't working because his partner was consistently getting upset during couples therapy and that there was a lot of emotion coming out for her during those times. And sometimes he would say, like, we had several sessions where he would say, like, towards the end of it, that he felt like they weren't in a good place because like she would still be so upset for several of these sessions. And so like it very much brought to mind that, there's a certain perception here of and it's not just him, like it was more so this idea of you go to therapy, you expect this sort of like mentality or this idea of like, okay, I'm going to go into therapy with and talk about these anxious issues or these things that are upsetting me and then I'm going to be fine by the end of it, right? And then I had to have like a conversation with him about, I'm like, well, these are kind of like the first times that she's had the opportunity to like really open up and express the things that she's been upset about, and a lot of that is not entirely going to be resolved or covered within an hour time period, first and foremost, which is why I was telling him I was encouraging like 2 sessions a week. And then I'm like, secondly, I'm like, these sessions are all about giving you both the opportunity to like open up and process these things that you guys have had difficulties talking about. So yeah, she's gonna be upset about them, you know, like she's these are things that she has been holding in for years and years. So like I just felt like it gave this perception that, and the unpopular opinion, so to speak, is that you don't always have to be, you know, like calm or when you are trying to work towards healing. Like you can be upset, you can be angry, you can cry and yell, and all of these for me is very much encouraged in the sessions that I have with people. So yeah, so that was kind of like, if that made sense. I don't know if all that made sense, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going into like the expectation that people go into therapy and they're just like immediately cured. And everything feels better. But
Or that even by the end of a session, right? Like that you have to be like fine. Like, okay, you helped me through the session and then I should feel fine by the end of it. And I'm like, that's not
uh
always the case, you know?
yeah, no, that's what I just said. Sometimes you feel worse, guys. Like it's not, you're not always gonna feel good. But yeah, that's an interesting take. I've also had people kind of voice that for one reason or another, where they're like, I don't understand why I'm not feeling better. And it's like, well, because I spoke to you for 30 minutes and I don't have a magic pill. So, yeah, it's going into therapy with realistic expectations. I find that I don't know, a lot of people do have that expectation that it's just gonna like be like this magic pill. So it helps when you're first starting with a client to kind of like ask what their expectations are. So I will ask that. I'll be like, how many, like, what's your expectation for therapy? Do you have like a limit on your sessions? And I find that like it gives people like a better understanding, because some people will be like, well, yeah, I kind of just thought 3 sessions, and I'm like, you okay, you want to talk about childhood
Mhm.
trauma, deep rooted anxiety, recurrent depression, you're in a toxic relationship. I'm like, homie, maybe 3 sessions ain't it. And maybe it's somebody coming in saying, I just need like some coping skills, like that's it. So yeah, 3 sessions should be enough. I just want to know how to like better handle these situations. I'm like, okay, cool. For the most part, people that start therapy will be in therapy way more than 3 sessions, but it very much depends on the situation. So it's knowing and having the insight into your own life and having like a realistic expectation for how long things are going to take. Because if a conversation was enough to make everybody feel better, well, then we would all just be rainbows and butterflies and happy all the time. So, guys, just remember it takes time.
It definitely does, you know, and again, I think that I understand this idea that, you know, you're coming in because like you want to work on these things, or you want to be able to process these conflicts that you're in and then feel better for them. I get that. But I think it's also what people don't understand, and you're exactly right. Like, you know, this is also kind of like the therapist job as well, to like understand those expectations and talk about it and give those clients the reality of it. But I think there is also that idea of that when you are opening up and this rage comes out, or this grief comes out, or even the numbness, or whatever it is that is still you healing, you know, that is still you working through these things to get to that better place, because healing isn't always peaceful, right? Like you can still work on being regulated and still be angry about things that are going on, you know, and that's honestly how it should be. And in a lot of times in sessions, but I think it's still maybe clients understanding that you may not necessarily end that session feeling like, okay, fine, like let me go back to work. That's why sometimes, depending on what I'm going over, I'm like, maybe let's not do your therapy session during your lunch break, because I don't know how you're gonna be feeling afterwards and then wanting to go back to work for that, right? Like, so it really does depend on what is getting worked through. And yeah, there are gonna be times you're not gonna be leaving the therapy session feeling entirely great, but maybe you work through a lot of stuff that is going to ultimately make you feel a lot lighter and healing, and possibly even more peaceful later on. So yeah. So that's my thing on the next unpopular opinion. So this third one is a little bit, I don't know how much Melissa's gonna like go into a tirade about this. Hopefully not, but we'll see. Um, Unpopular opinion. Therapy isn't always the priority. So what I mean by that is I've had like a lot of client, like I had a client or whatever that wanted to refer a client to me. And she was like, "Yeah, her father just got detained by ICE and she needs to be able to like work through that, right?" And I understood that, like I understood and I was appreciative of her, like wanting to refer and things like that. But I think what some people again feel sometimes don't realize is and let me actually before I go into that, let me also say like there's been other situations like I was here for like the Stoneman Douglas shooting that happened. Like I was nearby and like they immediately wanted to get people into therapy, right? And I'm saying this at the same time to say that I don't think people realize that sometimes basic needs come first, right? Before you can even get into the process of trying to then maybe prioritize therapy, right? Like if you're homeless, for example, right? Like getting somebody into therapy, that's not a priority. You get it? Like it's about like maybe finding a safe place to sleep where you can be a little bit more stable. If your father or your family member is like detained by ICE, it's about maybe like trying to work through what is going on in that situation and the possible injustice of that situation before you can even think about the idea of therapy. If you just watch somebody, if be like shot in front of you, God forbid, then it's like, you might still be in shock from that situation. To then even like be in a capacity to be able to talk about that through therapy. You get it? So like that's kind of what I mean by yes, therapy can be very, very supportive in the life that you have, but it does not replace stability. So it's kind of like if you are not in a stable environment at times to even be in a place to talk and process your feelings, then therapy isn't going to be the priority. So, what do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. Especially when it comes to safety. Like if you are having like a safety issue at home, like let's take a very, I don't want to say it's basic, but let's say it's more common, right? Let's talk about domestic violence, right? We can therapize you all day, but if you're in an environment where you are unsafe, is that really the priority? Like what is talking to me for an hour a week? Like what is that going to do for your life if you are in a situation where you end the call and then you go like literally get physically assaulted or sexually assaulted? So yeah, we can talk through it and maybe help you get to a place where you're ready to leave. That's a different conversation. But the priority there isn't going to be us talking about your childhood trauma. The priority there is going to be how do we get you out of that situation as soon as possible.
Right.
Um, so yeah, there are just very, I think, cut and dry situations where like the priority is safety. And you mentioned homelessness. That's also like that's a safety concern. Obviously, if you don't have a home and you're out on the street, well, like you're not in the safest environment. I don't have to go into how dangerous homelessness can be, right? Like I think we're all on the same page there.
No,
Um,
yeah. This is kind of like a side tangent, but I think that's one of the things that used to like piss me off so much about my old job. Like Melissa and I have talked about this before that, we met and we used to work at a homeless shelter. And I used to always advocate I'm like, hey, we don't need to get these people into therapy within like 48 hours of them coming into a homeless shelter. Like, I don't really think that's so much of a priority in comparison to making sure like they're settled in and that they get their basic needs met and like they're working towards like all these other things that like, and then I would always just get told, oh, well, like it's for grants and all these other things. Like, it's about money. And I get it. Like, it's a homeless shelter. You need that. But I like that was kind of always the one thing that frustrated me because then I would have clients come up to me and be like, they want to schedule me for like 5 different appointments and I'm just getting in here on like day 1 or 2. And one of those appointments is always about like for a therapy assessment. And these assessments would be anywhere from 1 to 4 hours long. And I'm just like, that's insane for somebody who's homeless and just coming in, whether it's by themselves or one, two, three, four, five, sometimes 8, 9 kids. Like it's insane. And that's why I'm saying like it's not a priority if like if you need to work on getting your basic needs met, or if you need to work on like that aspect of like, hey, I just had like a huge major trauma or a major thing that happened in my life, like I still even need to take time to process like how I even feel about that, right? And sometimes immediately jumping into therapy is not always going to be the best option for you at times.
Mhm. So I feel like so far all unpopular opinions were like, yeah, are we just are we just like not are we not going with the crowd here? What's happening?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, like some of this is from personal life, some of this is from things I'm seeing on social media. So I don't know. It is what it is. This is kind of this next unpopular opinion. I've definitely seen a lot. This idea of therapists have emotions too, right? Like we've talked about this in other ways before, like the mentality of like when you get out of grad school and how you should be as a therapist, and like you don't bring in your personal info, your personal drama. Like this is not about you. This is like about the client. Like you have to keep the straight face and like not really like show judgment or emotion or things like that. But I think sometimes it was like this misconception that like you being shocked or you smiling or you having any sort of facial expression is showing judgment, right? I think maybe that was a misconception that a lot of grad students had, but like I think the reality of it is this idea of like, hey, like therapists are freaking humans. Like we're not a fucking robot, all right? And the human connection that we develop with that person matters, right? And we can be, and if we're working on understanding your emotional capacity and what's going on with you, like that emotional attunement that we have with that person that we're talking to is not unprofessional, especially like if I'm also reacting to what you're going through, right? Like if you're crying and sobbing in front of me because like you're talking about a very traumatic experience, then it's like I'm probably gonna cry or like like feel emotional about it too. Like we're not robots, and I feel like it's a disservice to clients at times to not be able to express or to show our emotions in within reason for our clients too. So,
Yeah, I'm out here making all sorts of facial expressions. I'm not gonna lie. I I find that interesting because that ties into people feeling like their therapists are robots, right? Like, how are you just not supposed to react to some of the things that you hear? Like, sometimes people tell me things and I'm like, I'm sorry, they did what? And who did what? And that's what they did. And like I'm reacting with you, and I feel like I'm never going to react more than you. I'm not here to like egg you on. Like, yeah, get
right.
mad. Like, that's not what we're doing. But I almost feel like it's like validating, right? And
For sure.
I've had people tell me that, right? Like they're like, this is why I see you because I just needed my feelings to be validated. And I'll be like, yeah, I would have been mad too. Like, what the fuck? I don't curse in my
Yeah.
sessions, but like it's a part of it. Like sometimes you just need to react within reason, right? Like don't egg your client on. Don't, because that's a thing too. Like sometimes, if you're talking to your friends and you're angry and your friend is like hyping you up and like, you should go do that. Like that's not what we're doing here. I'm never like, yeah,
Go
go
bash his windshield in.
go get him. You should go slap him. Like we're not doing that. But like emotion is okay, right? Even like this happens to me a lot, and it like I don't know why I've turned into like this like emotional being after having kids. It's not good. But sometimes when people are telling me things that are like really emotional, especially if it's a client that I've been seeing for a really long time, that I've like really like I'm invested, I care for them, my eyes will like start to get watery, and I'm like, no. Like obviously I've never cried in a session. That's crazy, but don't react more. But like I'm like feeling with you, right? And I think that as a person in therapy, like you can probably feel that. Like I'm not just like sitting there faking that I care, like just like thinking about what I'm gonna have for lunch. Like I'm like feeling with you. And so I think that that's valuable. I don't know, man. Like what's up with like people being like, my therapist can't show any emotion? Like why? Why don't you want to know that I care about you? That's weird.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's definitely something that we this is gonna sound a little bit stereotypical, but I can just go based off of like my own personal experience. I feel like I see it more with like the older generation, at least just from my personal experience of them wanting more of maybe what was considered that sort of traditional, you know, very professional in terms of like how you looked, how you dressed, how you kept your facial expressions, how you spoke, all those things in comparison to maybe more of like the millennial, like the not the millennials are necessarily that much younger anymore, but I'm just saying like the millennial and younger, definitely more open and very much wanting, again, like to maybe even to know your political affiliations. We talked about that before, right? Like to see your facial expressions, just wanting to talk, being more open even to the idea of small talk and like the things that I had mentioned earlier. I feel like I see more of a willingness and more even of wanting that with those generations in comparison to the older. I don't know if you feel like you've seen the same thing, but I know at least for me, I've definitely seen that.
You
Not to say
mean
it's all of them, but
yeah, you mean like the not therapist, right? You're talking about like your client's age?
clients, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that too. For one reason or another. I mean, obviously it has to be like in different like just differences in age and like whatever, but um I've had some older clients be more worried about like where I what I lean towards politically, which is interesting. And then I do have my younger clients just like ask more about me, which is what I've noticed. Like a lot of my younger clients are like, "How are you doing? How are your kids? Like, how are you
Yep.
feeling? Like, have you
Oh
been?
yeah.
You sound sick. Were you sick?" And even asking me like if I'm drinking
Yep.
Starbucks, like, "Hey, how often do you buy Starbucks?" And I'm just like, "What is happening?" My older clients, not as much. I do have a few older clients that'll ask me like here and there, but it is like the younger ones that are like, even like asking me, if you have sessions with me, I have a bunch of like running medals in the background, and they're like, "Where'd you get those medals? What was the race? Like, what'd you do?" So I have to like, in those situations, I answer, but I redirect pretty quickly because I'm not here to talk about myself. But I do get way more questions from young and even clients like
Oh, for
around my
sure.
age, right? So I think that's like the weird, like you have to like kind of set that boundary because clients my age will be like, let's be friends. And I'm like, I would be your friend if I wasn't your therapist. I am your therapist. I can't be your friend. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely like you can see the difference throughout the generations for sure.
For sure. So that's why I was saying like I think that's something that at least in terms of the emotion aspect of it, I've seen that more of that willingness with the younger generation in comparison. So this last one actually got me upset when I was reading about this. And I was upset not only by the post, the video, but also about the comments too. So this came up on my feed of this guy that was talking on this podcast, and he was saying that he was seeing his therapist, and his therapist shared his screen with him. And I share my screen plenty of times with my clients too, right? To like display or demonstrate something, whatever. So his therapist shares his screen with him, and he notices that one of his tabs that he has open is ChatGPT. And because of that, he said that he immediately dropped him as a therapist. And the podcaster, the interviewer, was like already like nodding her head, like, yep, I get it. And so then he goes in further and he was like, I'm sorry, but like if you're a therapist and you're using ChatGPT to like help give me therapy, like I don't want you as a therapist. Like that's not okay. And like I don't need you um I don't need you like putting in my information or there or whatever and like asking ChatGPT to like what to say to me and all this other stuff. And the again the interview was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then all of the comments, like I would say probably a good like 80% of the comments were like, yeah, I would never use a therapist that uses ChatGPT or whatever. Oh, one of my therapists tried to give me like a worksheet and you can tell that it was from ChatGPT and I dropped them and all this other stuff. And I got so heated. Like, I don't know why it upset me so much, but I got so upset because I was like, first and foremost, like I use ChatGPT like all the time, all of the freaking time. And what upset me about this was like first and foremost, he didn't even like talk to the therapist about it. He was just like, I immediately dropped him. So he didn't even talk to the therapist about it to even see like what he was using. Like, not that even like a therapist has to tell you, but it's like didn't even like talk to the therapist about it. The fact that the interviewer like didn't even like question him, like nothing about it, was just like immediately on board. And then like thirdly, like not even giving the consideration to understand that like, and we've talked about this in another podcast episode specifically about like using AI and ChatGPT and stuff like that, but like not even like understanding of the capacity of like how helpful it can actually be in like customizing certain circumstances or certain situations for who you're working with. I mean, that's what I use it for. And I was just like, really? Are we really going into like this state of mind where it's like this is where we're at? Like you can't even have a conversation about this stuff anymore. It's just like, no, that's it. It's like it's an immediate red flag if you're using it. That's it. So I don't know. It got me heated. And so that is my last one. AI in therapy.
Okay. Um, I don't I don't know. I think so a lot of therapists actually do use AI, whether it's like for notes and honestly like getting feedback. I'm on like the I think that reaction is like really extreme. I'm more of like the in between where I don't know about using AI to like know what to say to a client because I'm not a fan of that,
Well,
honestly.
I think that was an assumption.
Yeah, I get that. That's definitely an assumption. But I was gonna say honestly, I have some clients that will use ChatGPT and will put in their own issues and they'll come to
Oh,
me in
for sure.
sessions and be like, this is what ChatGPT said. And it's
For
some
sure.
insightful ass shit. Like I'm like, that's good. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Now would I be using it during a session? No, one, I'm like not on my screen, like typing things in, like asking ChatGPT what to say. But do I agree that you should like drop a therapist because of it? I'm gonna say no for a lot of different reasons, and one of them being that like your therapist is also a person, right? So like I don't know, why would you expect someone who is constantly learning and growing within the field, because that's why we have to do continued education courses and keep up to date, and every client is different, right? So why would you expect a therapist, even somebody that's been doing therapy for 10 plus years, to know about every single situation? Like I actually would see it more as a positive if you have a therapist that after your sessions or even before your sessions is doing additional research, however that looks like, to make sure that they're giving you the best guidance. Because just because you're on ChatGPT doesn't mean that you're like taking it verbatim and then going and just like repeating it exactly as is. Like maybe you're taking bits and pieces of it and using that to be a better therapist, to be more insightful. Because like I said, a lot of my clients use it and it is like it's pretty good, honestly. Like it'll give you some good feedback. Do I think it should replace a therapist? No, absolutely not. That's why we're having this conversation. But I mean, I don't know. I think a better approach to that is like if you see your therapist is using ChatGPT, ask for what before just assuming. Because I don't know that people are like, oh my god, my client just said this. What do I say back? That's different. But isn't I mean I don't know. AI is like it's doing it's looking into Google and all these different platforms and giving you that information. So wouldn't it be the same thing as like should I tell clients sometimes I'm like, look, listen, like this is a really specific presentation for this. I don't have a lot of experience with it. Are you okay with me doing some research into it? Isn't that the same thing as me Googling something? Like I don't like am I supposed to know everything? Now the difference is I do like tell clients that, but do I agree with dropping somebody because of that? No. I think that's a maybe ask a question, you know? That's where I'm at with it.
I actually feel like at times you're doing your clients a disservice as therapists if you're not in the know of even like how these different AI methods work, right? Because like you said, and you're exactly right, like so many of our clients will, unless you work with like very specific populations that don't use it, which can happen, but like so many of our clients nowadays are using AI in so many different forms. And I literally had a client just yesterday tell me the exact same thing because it does come up like, yeah, I had this big fight with my wife and I put everything that happened in ChatGPT and then ChatGPT like, yeah, was like, yeah, you're that's valid and things like that. And I'm not saying that it always gets it right, right? That's why we're not saying like you don't use it as therapy, but that doesn't mean that it's not so beneficial and useful in its own ways. And not knowing how it works does put you at, like it does limit you in your ability to how you approach your client because guess what? Your client is using it. They are using it already. And you not knowing how that works or how your understanding of it puts you at a disservice for them. I've used it in so many different ways and I've honestly encouraged my clients to use it in many different ways. Sometimes it's something as simple as like, hey, put in all this info and have them help you do meal prepping for the week. You know, put in all this info and then help them create a shopping list or whatever for you. Like I've helped them obviously to like make their lives easier, especially when they're coming to us with already hectic and chaotic lives. I use it very specifically to help create very customizable worksheets for my clients. And that was kind of like one of the disses in like the real. They're like, I don't want my therapist using AI generated worksheets to send me and like they're just expecting like their therapy to just be based off of like these worksheets. And I was like, bro, I was like, sometimes like these worksheets are used for like homework or like ways to like check in or things like that for you to like have more awareness during the week when you're not meeting with your therapist, who by the way, you're only meeting with for like some at times like usually 1 hour once a week and the rest of the time like you're dealing with your shit on your own. So usually these are things that are supplemental and I like to not have a standard and basic worksheet. I like for them to be very specific to the client and the things that they're going through. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that I've actually really loved about ChatGPT is like, hey, this is a worksheet that I have, but like I really want to customize it to my client. These are some of the issues or the concerns we're trying to address. These are the symptoms that that they have. Let's customize it, and then we go from there. And like I have found it to be incredibly beneficial in that sort of way, aside from like helping to maybe like write out some of my notes as it is. So like for me, I don't know, like I feel like if I feel like it's like the complete opposite. Like if your therapist isn't using AI, that might be something that you want to be mindful of because then it's like, well then how much are they then even being willing to understand how you are or the things that you do and how much you implement it in your life. So so yeah, it's not about for me, like I think AI in a lot of ways can give you insight on certain things like you said, but it's like it's not giving you, like a different relationship, especially from the one that you have with your therapist. It's not replacing any of those aspects, but it can definitely help you maybe organize those thoughts or, provide certain languages to things and yeah, so I would say for that, if anybody is maybe on board with that idea of like dropping a therapist based off of that, maybe it's something to give another consideration to, or maybe just simply talk to your therapist about it and see what comes out as a result. So yeah, Melissa, I don't know if you have any final words to kind of add to that.
And that's all I got. I think we've spoken about enough unpopular opinions to get canceled today, so I'm tapping out.
Oh, for sure. Right. So, but that's kind of the point, right? Like, if these things made you feel uncomfortable in any type of way, maybe like that might be the point here, right? Like, it's not about like therapy isn't about fitting into this perfect idea, this perfect perception of what healing looks like. It's maybe about understanding what actually works for you, and sometimes that does mean questioning what you've been told about what healing should look like, or maybe what the therapist should look like or things like that. So if any of this resonated with you, please let us know. Leave comments. I've mentioned it before. If you've heard any of our other episodes, you can find us on Instagram, on TikTok. Our handle is strongmindmh. That's just what it is across the board. So, let us know if you have any other ideas for unpopular opinions. We would love to hear it. Until next time, stay safe and stay a little unhinged.
Bye.
Bye.